There is a moment in every life when you decide to rise, to stand taller than your fear, to speak louder than your doubt, to chase the vision that sets your soul on fire. This is that moment. And here, we walk it together with stories that awaken, voices that inspire, and truths that set you free. This is Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where hope has a voice, and that voice is yours. And welcome to the show, everybody. Everybody needs to pay attention to this because this is a multi-generational show today based upon the young people and the older people and the older people, and they're all still here. And Dr. Corinne and Auman,
It's Corinne Auman.
Perfect. Corinne, I should have asked you that before we started, but you know. Okay. And Brichelle, how are you today?
I'm very good. I'm very excited for this conversation, specifically because I'm on the younger hand of it, and I get to experience a lot of things that older people did not when they were my age. So thank you for being here, Corinne. And I want to get this off the bat right as we start, because I'd like to know what initially got you into this work.
So I, like a lot of people who work with older adults in general, had grandparents that I adored. And what I think is really interesting, if you talk to people in general, most people love their grandparents. Like that's some of their favorite memories. And yet we have these stereotypes about older people in general that are very negative. And yet we adore our own grandparents. And so it's sort of this, well, these older people are great, but all those other ones, they're not the ones I want to talk to, deal with, be like, that kind of thing. But no, I grew up next to them and adored them, had a terrific relationship. But when my grandfather passed away pretty suddenly, my mom and her sister realized that their mom had dementia much more significantly than they had initially realized. And so they went from having two living parents to realizing that their mom really needed 24-hour supervision. And I got to watch that process of taking care of my grandmother from the time I was in 8th grade all the way through being a junior in college. And I watched them try to figure it out, right? Like, how do you navigate this journey? Who do you go to for advice? They made mistakes along the way. And so I got into my day job is as a care manager. And so we help families navigate through that process. Like, how do you do all these things? How do you plan and prepare? And that's how I got into that, because I watched them go through that and thought there has to be somebody who helps you do that. And now I run a business doing that very thing.
It really is an important business, because especially now, there are fewer kids. Most people of our generation maybe have 1.5 to 2.2 kids. And
half a kid out there.
There's somewhere there's just half a child somewhere. But they are busy. They've got children of their own. They've got 2 jobs. They're both working full time, and to maintain the lifestyle that they would like. And it, now that I'm a little bit older, I look ahead, and my own children, one is in the Air Force and he's out of the country, and the other one's got stepchildren and a wife, and he's got his own stuff going on. I'm alone when it comes to this kind of thing, and I'm going to need to develop a plan of how I'm going to make this all work for me without worrying about whether or not my children will be able to take care of me, because that's not reality for me. And that's why I make friends with younger people like Brichelle. And so, but she's got a whole bunch of her own older people than her family that she is going to end up having to and getting to work with and stuff. So yes. What you're doing is really, really, and as the baby boomer generation gets older, there's going to be more and more need because so many of us are retiring now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then there's that gray period between retiring at 65, 66, 67, somewhere in there, and then, living into your 70s, and then you get closer to your 80s, and your body changes a lot. Your diseases come up, and it's a nightmare for us. You're looking forward.
No. Let's reframe that.
Yeah.
It's not a nightmare. It's an opportunity. I mean, in the sense that the way we talk about it is in our culture is often overwhelmingly negative, and I really want to reshape that because that's one of the reasons I have my book here behind me, and it's called Keenagers. That's with a K. And it's telling a new story about aging because how we talk about it matters immensely. So I'm going to back up. So I run this business, helping people navigate aging. And yet I've also written a book about all the positive things about aging, all the things to look forward to, because what I see in my care management practice is that people who are looking forward to growing older, who are thinking about it as an opportunity, like, oh, I'm going to retire, but what do I get to do now? What's my next thing? What's the next version of me going to be? They make plans and they do better than the people who are going, oh, this is going to be awful. And, my mom didn't do well, so I'm not going to do well either. And just the power of that frame that you have matters tremendously. And there's research on this. Like Dr. Becca Levy up at the Yale School of Public Health has done decades of research about people who have a positive outlook on aging. They walk faster. They're less likely to develop dementia. They live on average 7 years longer than people who have a negative outlook. So you have tremendous power if you're looking forward to it, because that looking forward makes you plan, makes you prepare, makes you go, hey, what do I actually need to do to make sure this goes really well? So maybe you work with an estate attorney to get all your documents in order. Maybe you hire a care manager to help you plan and figure out what you can afford and do all the things in advance, versus the people who are in denial and kind of bury their heads in the sand because I'm not growing older. I'm going to die warm in my bed. Nothing bad's going to happen to me. And I'm going to, I cannot tell you how many times I have had someone in their 80s or 90s look at me and say, well, I don't want to move into any kind of retirement community because I don't want to go live with those old people. So they themselves are in this age group, but because there is so much negativity around being older, they don't want to be associated with other older people. It's kind of a othering, right? I don't want to go be like them because they're old. I'm not, and I want to get away from that fear.
It's amazing because I don't leave my house a lot because I do a lot of this. I'm doing this every day and stuff. And so there are people who don't know that anybody actually lives here. But then on the other hand, I live in a 55 plus community. And there are lots and lots of people I've never met because they don't leave their house. They just stay there and they just exist. And that's not what I'm going to do. So I'm not going to get old and I'm not going to die, dang it. Because I've been told that I'm going to get into big trouble if I die. Haven't I been told that, Rochelle?
Yeah, that me and God talk. That's not really an option for you in the books very soon. Sorry, you can't have an easy way out, so you better start planning. But this is making me think, Corinne, even about my own great grandpa. We have been going through this with him for years, honestly. But specifically in the last year or two after him losing my grandma, which was his daughter, and he doesn't have a lot around, and unless we travel out to Colorado, which I do often, to take care of him, he sparks up when we're there And when we're not, he just goes back down into his rut. And he said the same thing you just said. I'm not going to go live with those old people. My grandpa, I hate to break it to you. You are one of those old people.
Mhm.
And it's crazy too, because it's like the lady down the street that he went to high school with in this small town. It's like, why don't you go talk to her? You know, she came over and saw that you were doing a yard sale. She obviously cares about you, and you don't have any friends. And oh no, I'm not going to go bother her. I'm not going to put me onto her. I'm not going to. A lot of younger people also talk like this. In my I've had those thoughts myself.
Mhm.
The same thing. I don't want to grow older. I'm not going to die. And if I do, hopefully it's sooner rather than later. Like, I've heard myself through my grandpa. Is this just how it's all been translated over the last few generations? Is that normal?
Well, I think we are all surrounded by the same cultural message. And the cultural message is that growing older is bad, right? And that older adults aren't valued. And I think people really fear that kind of not being valued, feeling invisible, not feeling and the thing I always say to people is, if you don't like how older adults are treated or portrayed today, then the way to avoid having yourself treated that way is to start changing this narrative, right? To start fighting ageism, because I'm 50, and sometimes people will say to me, I do ageism talks and trying to like bring out this message, and they'll say, well, you're too young to care about older people. You're too young to care about ageism. And I'm like, but if I want to have a good older adulthood, and if I want to be valued and respected as I grow older, I have to care about how people are being valued and respected today, because otherwise it's not going to change. So, if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and you're thinking, oh, I don't want to grow older, that's going to be bad, that's going to be terrible. Why? Start with the question of, why do you think that? Right? Like, look around you at the experiences of the 60, 70, 80-year-olds around you. And then also, okay, if I don't want to have that experience, where do I have the power to change what that experience will be like? And you have tremendous power. Just in your own experience, how you age is about 30% genetics and about 70% lifestyle choices. And then in terms of what you think, right? When you are saying, oh, I don't want to grow old, go, well, why is that? Why do I think that in my own head? And starting to question where that messaging comes from.
Yeah.
Well, and
fear.
I'm sorry, Rochelle, I interrupted you. Say that again.
No, you're good. I learned actually this from Kevin, but I've realized that a lot of it comes down to fear of the unknown. Whether you're older, whether you're younger, if you are looking at the future with fear, it's because you actually, I don't know why that is. I'm still figuring that out, but I know where it comes from. So go ahead, Kevin.
Well, and my dad is a classic example of this. He was a executive for 30 years with Nordstrom. He was Mr. McDonald, and everybody valued him as a big shot. And then he retired. And his identity went with the job that he just left. So he became just Jack, not Mr. McDonald. And he did not know who Jack was. And that's why your work is so important, because older people, your job should not be the thing that defines you. It should be your passion. It should be what you want to do with yourself after that. And he said to me openly, I said, well, Dad, why don't you volunteer? Do something, walk dogs, have a good time. And he said, oh, no, am I going to get paid? And am I going to get paid what I'm worth? And I said, well, maybe not, but you can have a good time and you can meet other people. And he said, no. So he played golf, and then he broke his hip and he couldn't play golf anymore. And so he sat on the couch until the day he died. And I refuse to do that.
Yeah. And that is tremendous. Good for you, because the worst thing you can do is retire and not have purpose and meaning in your life. And that purpose and meaning can be anything, right? It could be walking the dogs. It could be volunteering. It could be caregiving. It could be starting your own business. It can be podcasting. It can be anything you want it to be. But one of the things people really struggle with after they retire, especially if they were like somebody who had a high power job or job that took up a lot of hours of their week, like a doctor, working 60, 80 hours a week, they really struggle with their identity after they retire. And we don't do anything to help them, right? Like you think about how much planning and preparation we do to like send somebody off to college for 4 years, right? And you're going to retire and have a couple of decades of life ahead of you, which is a gift because previous generations did not get those decades that we have ahead of us at 65. And we don't do anything to help people plan and prepare for retirement, to say, okay, what are you going to do now? And how are you going to manage this transition and all of these things? We just say, here's your party. Thank you so much. Now go away. And
he didn't even get the party. Yeah, he didn't even get the party. He just the story goes that he was talking to a friend at lunch and he was saying, I may retire in a couple of years. And he was thinking 62, 63, 64. And he gets to work the next day, and Mr. Nordstrom, one of the owners of the company, this is Nordstrom, the retailer, was sitting in his office and had a package for him. And he said, Jack, I've heard that you want to retire. Here's your package. Thank you very much. Have a great day. And he was gainfully employed one day, and this happens a lot to older people. Gainfully employed one day and unemployed with nowhere to go the next day. And it's really important, Doc, that we help people. As a matter of fact, I got to ask you this. Have you ever been to Kenya?
I have not been to Kenya. No.
You have now. Because Rochelle, could you read that? Because I can't pronounce.
Yes. Samuel is doing amazing things with a village in Kenya, raising and helping children. He says, greetings from Kibera slums in Nairobi, Kenya. Receive the warmest greetings from Brother Kevin and Sister Rochelle. Watching you live. Favorite program, Positive Talk Radio. Say hi to our guest, Dr. Corinne. Keep listening keenly with my colleagues of 20. And he now has official employees that are helping him with this organization to feed and provide knowledge for these kids in Kenya. And we're so proud of him. So I'm so glad he's here and listening to this, because it doesn't matter where you are around the world. And, we all age, and it's kind of a factor for everybody. So.
Absolutely.
And we need to take a real quick break, and we will be right back. More with and Rochelle, her website is.
I was not able to get the website on my link. Dr. Corinne, can you tell me what it is?
Sure. It's just my name, CorinneAuman.com. That's CorinneAuman.com.
And perfect. And we will return in just about 45 seconds. Watch this. This is really cool. We'll be right back. Love, war, and freedom collide in The Girl of Many Crowns. Judith of Francia's story will take you from the heart of royal courts to the chaos of Viking invasions. It's a tale of resilience and courage that proves history is not just written by kings, but by women who dared to choose their own path. The Girl of Many Crowns is available now on Amazon Books, Kindle, Amazon Audiobooks, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and Book Baby Bookshop. Don't just read history, experience it. Order your copy today. And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin McDonald. Rochelle is right there. And that is a book that is now out. And it's a wonderful read, and I highly encourage it. And Corinne, I want to make sure I get your name right. It's Corinne Auman. Is that right?
You got it.
Oh, thank God. You have no idea. Oh, sometimes I see Rochelle is the staff linguist. So if it's a difficult name like where he is in Siberia, I have her do it. But it is great to have you here, because And we're going to talk about your book here in just a couple of moments, because everybody and you know, before we began, we were talking about my older sister and her husband. They have 2 kids. Both of them are working. One is traveling a lot, and they're in their house that they've had for 70 years. And she's 73, has had 15 surgeries. She just had back surgery. Her husband is a little older, and he's starting to, you know, forget things and stuff. And they have it, but they're in the camp of, well, we'll see what happens when we get there. I'm sure you've heard that before.
Yeah. And that's one approach. I mean, I that's the kind of denial approach. So rather, you really have 2 choices as you grow older. You can pretend like nothing is changing, or you can plan for what you would like to have happen when things change, because it's really not a question of if, it's a question of when. And again, I think fear has a tremendous amount to do with it. So if I'm going to plan for when things change, some part of me has to acknowledge that things are going to change. And I think Brichelle mentioned it earlier, that fear of the unknown kind of makes people want to just bury their heads in the sand and pretend like nothing is happening. And that's really detrimental, because what ultimately does happen, something does change. And then I end up getting a phone call in my care management practice where it's an adult child, you know, a son, a daughter who is far away from their parents, and going, here, mom's in the hospital. Here's what happened. You know, I need to figure out what kind of care she needs, what she can afford. I need access to the bank accounts. I don't know where anything is. I don't know who to call. Can you help me? And, you know, and the answer to that is yes, I can, but that's a crisis. It's really stressful. And now your loved ones are trying to make life-altering decisions for you while they are very, very upset, and you didn't provide them with any information or resources about what you would want and how to pay for it. And
you know,
that's not a good spot.
What's interesting about that is my mother, who was 90, passed away. She went to have dinner on Wednesday, and she played bridge on Thursday, was going to go to a party on Saturday. She didn't show up to the party because she died on Friday, and was in her bed, and it was completely sudden and completely unexpected. But my sister was always trying to get her to lay out, okay, Mom, where's your bank accounts? Where is all of your assets? Where is the stuff? So that if for whatever reason you become incapacitated, then we can take care of it and take care of you. So fast forward, she passes away. We are in her house, and my sister has taken a bunch of stuff, put it in the living room that is going to be thrown away. And there was a box there, and it was a CD box. And I said, have you looked in here? And she said, well, yeah, it's just CD. I think there's just a couple of CDs in there. So I opened the box and looked in the lid, and there was an envelope there. And in the envelope was her birth certificate, was also $35,000 in savings bonds. That she was hiding and didn't tell anybody about it. And had I not looked, that would be in a landfill right now.
And it's amazing how many times, you know, people don't feel comfortable or don't want to share financial or personal information with their immediate family members for whatever reason. And, you know, there's family dynamics, there's all kinds of things. So my advice, if you are older yourself and you don't want to share that stuff with direct family members, that's when you need to share it with like a financial person, whoever your financial advisor is. You can give them that information and they will keep it. And then the only thing you have to give your family members is that person's name. Like, when I die, go talk to Steve over at the financial place, or put it in a safety deposit box and say, when I die, that's where it is, but you don't need it ahead of time. There are ways to share the information so that things don't get thrown in the landfill without necessarily giving your family all the information if you don't feel comfortable sharing that.
Yeah.
Which makes total sense. And how many people come to you, and the guy who called from out of state, and he reached out to you because he really had no idea what to do. What do you tell him? Do you then go through where you can hire us and we'll plan and we'll put it all together and to make it work?
Well, so it depends on, exactly what that phone call is. So, I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina, and so we're local to our area. Aging LifeCare Manager, which is our official title. You can find one in your local area. I can give you that website to put in the show notes for the Aging LifeCare Management organization. But so if he's calling me from out of state, that means his parents are here because I'm the feet on the ground where his parents are. Right. And so in that case, if it's a crisis and mom's in the hospital and all kinds of stuff is happening, I may be going to the hospital to check on her and to give him a report back. I may be going to the house with his permission to help find things, right? To help find the documents, to find whatever he needs, that kind of thing. It just depends on what the situation is. But we sometimes joke that we're like adult children for hire because we will step in and do everything that son would do if he was here. And if he also had expertise in social work and nursing and all the things that we know about the aging world. If it's not a crisis, right? Like if he's just calling me going, I don't think this is a good situation at home for mom, and we really need to do some planning for the future. Well, okay, then we can take some time, right? Then we can have some family meetings because I'm a neutral third party. I don't have a dog in the fight. It doesn't make any difference to me what you do. My job is to give you the facts of here are your options. Here's what you can afford. Here's how home care works. Here's how assisted living works. And just tell people what they don't know, because most people haven't thought about senior care at all until the last minute, and they don't know what they don't know about it. And so my job is to educate and inform, and I'll give you recommendations for sure, because, I know this field, but I don't care what you do. So sometimes, since I'm neutral, people will take my advice. I might even come in and say exactly what that adult son has been saying for months, but because I am not the adult son, they'll listen to me when they wouldn't listen to him. It's like, your own children don't know anything. If you change to their diaper, then you don't have to listen to them. That seems to be the unwritten rule.
Well, my children are smelly middle-aged men, and they still don't know anything. But that's just me,
It's not just you, I promise.
Well, and you just never know. My grandmother, I dearly loved her. She had dementia, and they put her into an assisted living where she could go down and have a meal and stuff. They had a little cafeteria and stuff. And she calls one day, my aunt, her daughter, and says, "There are people in my room." And so she says, "What are they doing there?" She said, "I don't know, but you need to come and get them out of my room." So she goes there, and the TV was on.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And so then they recognized that living alone for her probably wasn't a good idea anymore.
Right.
But in those days, goes back 20 years almost, you could get into Alzheimer's care and it wasn't horribly expensive. Now it's really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So you got to prepare and plan for these things, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt that financial planning is a big piece of it, especially if you want quality care. Then that's something a lot of people do not think about And so when I'm having those conversations about here are your options and here's what those options cost, it's a lot of sticker shock for many, many families. And it's different in different areas of the country. So, you would need to find out what the cost is, like where your parents live, or if you're thinking about moving them close to you, where you live, because it can be quite different from one area to another. But wherever you are, it feels expensive based on the cost of living in that area.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
And when we come back from this break, I really want to touch on that. If you have more, is it like more older people that are calling you that are saying, hey, I'm going into retirement, or I've been in retirement and I don't know what to do with myself? Or is it more families that are like, hey, we need some help because they won't get with the program? So.
And I'm willing to bet, and we'll talk about this when we come back, also your book, I'm willing to bet that most of the time you get called into a crisis situation because human nature, we wait till the last minute. And that's probably the case. But you'll be the answer to that. So we'll be right back after this quick message. We'll be back in 1:10. Stay with us.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
Are you looking for your daily dose of inspiration? Stay connected to all your favorite shows, music, and news with the Brushwood Media Network app. From Positive Talk Radio to Greatest Vibes Unplugged and so many more uplifting voices around the world, everything you need is right in one place. It's easy to use, too. Always available and designed to keep you inspired 24 hours a day. Go to brushwoodmedianetwork.com and download the app, and you will always have Brushwood Media available on your smartphone. Download it now and make inspiration and music and conversation part of your everyday. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald and Burchelle. And, we're talking about one of my favorite topics, which is, well, it's really not, because earlier, Doctor, you said that older people don't necessarily like older people. And I've said the same thing myself. I live in a 55 plus community, and they say, well, do you go to the center, the rec center, and meet people and have a meal and all that? And I say, oh no, those are a bunch of old people there. I don't want to talk to a bunch of old people. And so
here's the thing. A bunch of old people. And we say that like they're all the same, right? If you've met one 75-year-old, you've met one 75-year-old. Just like if you've met one 25-year-old, you've met one 25-year-old. We somehow think that or we talk about older people like they are this sort of homogeneous group, like they're just all old people, right? So they're all the same. And the fact of the matter is they're individuals with lives and interesting backgrounds and, things they want to talk about, things they want to do, just like everybody else. It's not, you don't suddenly become older and you lose all your personality and all your own interests and you just become this kind of like boring lump. That's the way we talk about it, though. We really do.
Yep.
What?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
And the other thing is we talk about older people as if their aging might contaminate us. Right? Like
it's contagious.
If I hang around these older people, I might somehow become older myself. And we don't want that, right? Like that's kind of no. But that is the way we have these conversations around it. So Kevin, please go meet your neighbors. I bet they are super. There'll be some you don't like, but I bet there are some super interesting people in your neighborhood.
Well,
just saying.
I got to tell you, Doctor, that what ends up happening is somebody will say, "Oh, so what are you doing? I don't see very much of you." And I said, "Well, I'm working a lot." And they say, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I have an audio video production company, and I do podcasts and radio shows." And they go, "Great, have a nice day." And they turn around.
Well, that you just haven't found the exact right person. I know several older people who do their own podcasts, and that's probably as part of like the field I'm in. But I know several older adults who are doing their own podcasts. So we just need to get you with the right people.
As a matter of fact, we just talked to a guy. He was an Air Force pilot. He threw 300 missions in Vietnam. He's 10 years older than me, and he and his wife have a podcast.
See?
He's been married for 57 years.
Yeah.
I can't even remember 57 years ago.
But it's the same thing as you said, Corinne, how we're talking about this, because younger people, it's kind of the same, how older people will say, "Oh, well, you're just too young," and you hear that a lot, but there's so much to learn from each other. And I think it's interesting because as a younger person, when your mind changes to say, what can I learn from this person? Because I can tell you, every 26-year-old that I talk to probably don't like them.
Yeah,
I don't.
See?
And so it doesn't matter what age we are.
Right.
I enjoy hanging out with older people because they kind of just seem to get it a little bit more. And there's so much more learning involved. But there are older people that have disrespected me just because I was young, and I didn't like them either. So this thing about age that we have is very skewed in the opposite way that we could look at it, that would make everything different, because we're all doing this together. We're all here. We're all each other's age at some point or another. And we just kind of seem to, like you said, like we're contaminating each other.
Well, it's a shame because I think it's an American cultural issue. Because if you go to some of the other cultures that are out there, like in the Philippines, we've got a couple of folks who work with us there, and she takes care of her grandmother, and she takes care of her mom and her sister, and the family's a lot closer knit than. And my sister and I were having a conversation just the other day, and she was like, "Well, we raised them and we brought them up right, and we gave them what we could, and now they're doing their own life, and they don't even call anymore." And they, and so the American culture is kind of that way, isn't it?
Well, we're much more individualistic, and whereas some of the other cultures are much more family based, in the sense that there is an expectation that you care for the older generations in your family, and that culture shift is maybe not one of our better products, in the sense that because we are so individualistic, that it means, we don't have that kind of support as we grow older. I also think, though, it's a change that has come about with technology too, because when families, when they lived closer together, it was easier to care for multiple generations. So now moving far away for a job has become normal, right? It's also an issue of the kinds of jobs we have, right? If we were all living on farms together, everybody had something to do, that sort of thing. But then it's also an issue of older generations used to really be valued because they were the Encyclopedia Britannica, for those of you who are old enough to remember what that is. And for the younger generations, they were the internet, right? Because when you didn't have the internet, the people who knew things in your community, the historians, the people who knew how to cook the meals, the people who knew how to raise the crops, were the older generations in your community. And now that we have all of that information available to us at the click of a button, we don't value the older people the way we would have, because in previous generations, we really needed them and needed their knowledge that they had to be passed down. And now we're kind of like, I'll just go Google it. It'll be fine.
And you know what's interesting about that? Because I was telling somebody the other day, and I had forgotten about this, but I remembered it when I was in school, and I was in a small school, so we had 2 grades. When the teacher was doing the other grade, I would go and get an encyclopedia, and I would sit and I would look through the encyclopedia. Okay, an encyclopedia is a book. And what it is it was like there used to be people that would sell these books door to door, and what it is that it's a bunch of history books.
It's how you did
And
your research. I can
they,
remember being in like middle school. This is before the internet. And if I needed to do research for a school project, my parents had a set of encyclopedias, and I went and looked up the information in the encyclopedia.
And so I used to just look through the encyclopedia and I gained knowledge about stuff that I had no idea about going into it. The problem with Google now is you have to have an idea of what it is that you're looking for, so you don't learn things that you didn't know that you didn't even know or were looking for.
Yeah.
So
Well, I have to say this. Okay, so one thing I was raised growing up on, I was raised by a lot of older people, and they would always tell me about instant gratification. I hate to break it to you, but a 2, 3, 4-year-old doesn't understand what that means. But it was embedded into me so far that I got to experience this recently with my great grandpa. Because it was such a negative for him, all these kids and they're instant this and instant that. And I said, Grandpa, it's not just for them. It's here for you. We are individualized, but I think that can be something that is maybe uplifting, because it doesn't matter what your grandkids or your great grandkids or your friend or your cousin or the aunt or whoever it was did. You can still do whatever with your life now. And with the internet, it's not just for the younger people.
My
Older people can be using this and using it.
My 80-year-old mom is on Facebook and Instagram, and that's how she keeps up with the grandkids and all the things that she follows, all their like sports teams and everything. And then my 81-year-old dad, I'm a little afraid on this one, but he has started using Facebook Marketplace to sell things. He's got a bunch of like old tools and stuff that he wants to get rid of. So he's posting on Facebook Marketplace and putting stuff up there at 81. And, he's just learning how to do all that. And on the one hand, I'm like, good for you. And on the other hand, I'm like, okay, let me tell you how people can try to scam you.
Yes,
let me give you some education about this. But so it is there. Absolutely. It is there for them too.
Well, and Kevin proves that every day in the work he does. He calls me, he said, I was playing with AI. I'm like, you? Like, I don't even know about AI, right? I don't spend my time even worried about that. And he comes up with these commercials and these scripts of things that were just in his head that are now something that he can use for himself and his future. And that itself, Kevin, is so inspiring, because you don't hear many older people. They're like, guess what I learned and guess what I am able to use so that I can have some sort of enlightenment about what's coming in the future.
Yeah.
And you know how weird I am is that I'll do something on AI and then it'll give me what I want and I'll say thank you. It's a computer. And I'll say please and thank you and then it will respond, well, you're certainly welcome. And it's like, you don't know that, you don't mean that. But Corinne, we need to talk about your book.
Sure.
What got you writing your book?
Well, so people like you, Kevin, you would be a Keenager. I was trying to, again, I think fear is what keeps people from planning for older adulthood. And I think part of that fear comes from our language, that the way we talk about growing older. And I was trying to write a book about here's what to look forward to as we're growing older. It's a bunch of interviews with people like Kevin who are doing really interesting things in their quote unquote retirement years. Because they're still working and starting businesses and running nonprofits and doing all kinds of stuff. And I was trying to talk about aging in a positive way, which is really, really difficult. So a friend of mine asked her mom, hey, what do you guys like to be called? And she said, oh, we call ourselves Keenagers, because the definition of keen means highly developed, or having a strong interest in something. And I think that's a great word to describe someone who is older, who is highly developed, right? But it has a positive connotation to it rather than all the word. I mean, the best we have are some kind of neutral words like older adult or senior, maybe elder. Some groups like elder, like in the church, there's an elder. But it's really hard to talk about it in a positive way. And so that's where the name came from. But it's a lot of interviews with people who are like, I've got one lady in there who kind of accidentally started a nonprofit for adult children of aging parents. And I mean, literally, she accidentally did this. And now it's like a nationwide nonprofit with multiple chapters in all these different states. And she's kind of like, I don't really know what happened here, but here we go. But people like that who I find inspiring and make me look forward to growing older. And that's what I want. That's what I want for me. That's what I want for Brichelle. That's what I want for everybody. And sometimes, like in the news media, you see stories about older people and they kind of present them like they're some sort of super senior, right? Like they're an outlier, they're one in a million. And my message is that is more the norm today. It's not the outlier. And you can expect that to be your norm if you are planning and thinking about what you want to do with these years, not retiring and just going to sit on your couch, but it does take some forethought. And it also means you have to be going, hey, these could be some really fun years. What do I want to do with them? And so that's the kind of thing that's in the book. I'm actually working on my second book now, which is How to Be a Keenager. So I wrote the first one, and the number one response I got to it was, I get it. I really like this. I'm excited, but you didn't tell me exactly how to do it. And now I need to know exactly how to do it. And so I'm trying to work on that one now. So we'll see.
But isn't that part of the grand adventure, is to experiment and to go through it and to find these things? Because that's the really cool part.
Well, yeah. And so what I'm trying to do is give people a framework. So I'm structuring it around this idea of the SPIES framework. And so it's thinking about your spiritual life, your physical life, your intellectual life, your emotional life, and your social life. So as you go through as you're approaching these years, thinking about what am I going to be doing in these different areas to enrich myself, or how do I want those areas to develop or flourish as I move through them? Because so many people just retire and go, well, I don't know what to do now. and they kind of flounder. And so I'm trying to give them some structure so that they can figure out what that path is for them.
That's just brilliant. Dr. Corinne Auman is our guest. We've got one more segment to do. I've got to take a quick break. And I want everybody to listen to this, because this is about being kind to each other. The strength of staying kind from your friends at Positive Talk Radio. Kindness is not weakness. It takes real strength to stay kind in a world that often rewards anger, ego, and control. Being kind means choosing to act from your values, not your wounds. It means showing grace even when no one's watching. But kindness doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean letting people take advantage of your time, your energy, or your peace. You can be kind and still say no. You have a soft heart with firm boundaries. The strongest people I know are the ones who choose compassion without losing themselves. They've been hurt. They've been tested. And still, they choose to love and lead and to lift others anyway. Kindness is not about pleasing everybody. It's about honoring who you are and how you treat others, even when it's hard. So stay kind, stay human, and stay strong. And always remember this: be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Brichelle and me. And Dr. Corinne Auman. And Corinne, I got to ask you something, because this is so scary to me. And years ago, when I was in my 40s, I had a program called Family Legacies. And I wanted to interview older people who were in assisted living and were nearing the end of their life because I wanted to present a CD to their family of their story in their own words. And I had a terrible time because a lot of older people do not value, because maybe they've been told they don't value, but they don't value their story and who they are and what they did and all of those things and what it was like when there were soda jerks running around, things like that. How do we help people recognize that their lives are valuable up to the day that they transition to go on to the next adventure?
I that's $1 million question right there.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, because I do think so much of it is cultural messaging around, even the fact that we separate people into 55 plus communities, right? Or assisted livings, that I think the intergenerational connections make people feel valued and appreciated. And when you are separated out like that, it does seem to contribute to the kind of othering. And then we can kind of ignore people in one group or another. Again, I think the messaging around this, but it's also, I've had this discussion with my own mom in that it's hard, I think, for people to realize or think about what other generations would find interesting about their childhood. So, for example, or their young adulthood. My sister-in-law got my mom, I think it's called Storyboard or Storyworth or something. It's kind of a book that you do that's similar to what you said. And like one of the questions in there was about my mom's favorite toys growing up. And my mom just kind of went, well, I don't even know what to say to that. We didn't really have toys growing up. Like the toy industry was not what it is today. She was like, yeah, I grew up on a farm and we were out playing with the animals or, doing stuff, playing outside. She was like, but we didn't have like toys, that just wasn't a thing. And I told her, I said, that's what you write. That's what you write. That is interesting, right? I would have never realized that you didn't have toys growing. Like, I mean, she said, maybe a doll, maybe one doll, but it just wasn't a thing. Like we buy kids toys today. That did not happen when she was growing up. And, but I think it's really hard sometimes for them to realize what the rest of us would find interesting or what the rest of us would want to know about what happened, because she didn't think that was very interesting. She thought she didn't have an answer to the question. And so I'm just not going to write anything. And it's like, no, you do. You have something there. And we do want to know that. And so I think it's hard sometimes to recognize that.
It really is. But the interesting thing, like in my life, when I came of age and figured out what John Kennedy was one of my earlier memories was when President Kennedy was killed. Mm-hmm. And then when the Beatles came, and I have a whole story around that. It was one of the most awful things of my life. But anyway, but as I get older, there are fewer and fewer of those people that remember and that were actually there. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing Little John with his when they were doing the parade and all of those things. It's memories of things that have gone by. And as a matter of fact, there are lots of stuff that you and I would know about that Rochelle had never experienced.
Well, the encyclopedia thing. I mean, you know.
Exactly. Like, or Photomat.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that? Well, and it's cool too because I get to learn through my great grandpa. And sometimes when Kevin said something, I'm like, oh, I actually just learned what that was. And my grandpa's like, oh, it's just a junk piece of metal. And I'm like, if that junk piece of metal was your toy, he mentioned that we didn't have toys like that. We made stuff. We built stuff. Yeah. That itself is so interesting because our kids are just like, oh, a piece of plastic, let's break it, smash it, and replace it. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't like that back in the day. Mm-hmm. So hearing even Kevin talk about it's knowledge, it's interesting.
And I can even remember going around my grandparents' house, like they had a farmhouse, and asking questions about different things that were there. Like they had a couple of old metal washboards, which are these boards that when you had to hand wash your clothes, you rubbed your clothes against this metal board. It's a wash, it's literally called a washboard. And I can remember, going around and asking questions, and at the same time, oh, that's just an old, and it's like, no, that's interesting, right? Like that's information. So I think to go back to the original question, Kevin, I think it's hard for people to think what they know that seems like to them just common knowledge. They don't understand that other people don't know that, and that other people would find that interesting. And that's sort of the disconnect.
And there was it was on Oprah or one of the shows, and they brought out a black rotary phone.
Mm-hmm.
And
none of the kids knew how to use it.
Had no idea how it worked at all. And so things change, but those are just wonderful examples of things that we can bring, that older people have value and we can bring. And it's like, that's why I got to be honest with you, I surround myself with younger people.
Yeah.
Because they have the vitality of life, and they respect the fact that I know a little bit from time to time, and they're like, oh, that's new and stuff. So,
intergenerational interactions are essential. I mean, they really are. And they are good for everyone involved.
And by the way, Samuel has a question for you. And the organization, the national organization that you talked about, is that just in the United States, or is it overseas as well?
It would operate in the United States and Canada, but I don't think it operates anywhere other than that.
And Samuel, so
on that.
that may be you're working with 350 kids, Samuel. Now you can work with 350 older people. Although I understand the lifespan in Kenya is a little bit less than it is here, but that's, in any event, Dr. Corinne, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
We've had a great time.
Thank you for having me.
And Rochelle, would you like to ask her the final important question?
Yeah. I'd love for you to share again anything about your book. When your new one's coming out, we'd love to have you back, because there's always so much we could have a new conversation with you. So anything for ways people to reach you and for them to have the knowledge of the book, and then any last message you'd like to leave us with as a thought.
Sure. So again, everything can be found through my website, which is my name, CorinneAuman.com. And the book is on there, all the information about me. If you're trying to find my social media accounts, the links for that are on there as well. So please feel free to connect with me there. The only other last message I will give you is that fighting ageism is an inside job. The first place you have to start is with your own head and your own comments that you're making to yourself about growing older, whether or not you're too old to wear something, too young to wear something, whether or not you are going to critique yourself for getting wrinkles, different things like that. Whatever you're saying in your own head, that is the place to start and go, why do I think that? And is that helping me in any way? And that is the number one thing you can do. Because once you start paying attention to ageism, you're going to see it and hear it everywhere around you.
That is so true. And recently I was looking at my arm and I was going, there's wrinkles there that were never there before. What in the hell is going on with that? And stuff. But, Doctor, thank you so much. And again, your website, if somebody wants to get a hold of you.
CorinneAuman.com. That's CorinneAuman.com.
And remember, if you're holding your arm up and you've got this skin that's hanging from your bicep that used to be there, and it's not, just wear a longer shirt. Nobody will know. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. That arm has done good work for a long time.
It has. It's wisdom. It's wisdom showing through.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Doctor.
And have a
Thank
great day, everybody. Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. May today's conversation give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.